Good morning, Presbytery of Minnesota Valleys. It's so great to be able to say hello to you this morning. I'm assuming you're watching this in your local church's worship on Sunday morning. And I'm also guessing that it is now the second Sunday of July, as I didn't get this video done in time. I'm giving this to you today because I was your teaching elder commissioner to the 226th General Assembly held in Salt Lake City at the end of June and the beginning of July. I'm so glad and joyful and grateful to you for entrusting me in this service, and so glad to have the chance to talk to you here today. You might hear a lot of things about what happened at GA or what didn't, and it might be really confusing to you. So I wanted to make a quick video that you could all share and watch in worship so that we could figure out exactly what went on. First things first, as far as what business happened at General Assembly. Our previous stated clerk, J. Herbert Nelson, resigned between our last two GAs, and we had an interim stated clerk. But at this General Assembly, we elected the new stated clerk of the Presbyterian Church USA, Jihan Oh. She's amazing. She's super qualified, super smart. We're very lucky and very excited to have her heading up this important position for our denomination. And second of all, of course, as is the duty of every General Assembly, we elected two new co-moderators for the PCUSA. Their names are Tony Larson and Cece Armstrong. They are both pastors, both teaching elders in the PCUSA, and we're very excited to have them at the head of our church for this General Assembly. Because of some changes to our General Assembly polity that if you want to contact me and talk to me about, I'd be happy to share more details. They will actually be also moderating the next General Assembly, the 227th in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, in 2 years. But as far as things that really affect you in your local church context, a couple of things I want to let you know of. First, General Assembly per capita is going up the next 2 years. We don't know exactly what our presbyteries rates will be and what our synods rates will be, so this is not final as far as what your church will pay, obviously. However, the current General Assembly per capita is $9.80. Next year, that is going up to $10.84, and the year after to $11.26. I realize that's a lot more, but please keep in mind how much more expensive things are. And these two things came after some business was transacted at GA, of course, to do some new things. But when the GA actually lowered their budget by $5 million for the next 2 years, they cut $5 million for 2 years in order to make the General Assembly costs as low as they are. So I think we can thank the folks who did that. And I understand nobody's thrilled about paying extra money into per capita funds, but it is really important for our denomination to continue doing its work and its missional involvement in the world. Furthermore, not affecting us next year, but beginning in 2026, we are going to move from 4 special offerings that you know now: the Peace and Global Witness offering, the Christmas Joy offering, the One Great Hour of Sharing offering, and the Pentecost offering. We are moving from those 4 down to just 3. The great thing about this move is that it is not going to change any of the things we're giving to. In the fall, there will be one offering that is what used to be the Peace and Global Witness offering will become the World Communion offering, which heads toward World Communion Sunday. And that will be focused on various kinds of justice issues and missional issues, as it has often been. Everything that was done in the Pentecost offering in the spring, the late spring, early summer one, is getting kind of ripped in half, and some of it is going into Christmas Joy, and some of it is going to Peace and Global Witness. One Great Hour is staying the same and keeping its same branding. Christmas Joy is staying the same and keeping the same branding, but with a couple extra missional things jumped in. Again, if you really want to know specifics, you can look it up or you can contact me if you're really interested. The really great news about this is it's a lot easier on our congregations. There's just one fall, one winter, and one spring offering now to keep track of instead of those 2 back-to-back in the spring. The downside of this new offering is that the fall and spring offerings, congregations used to keep a portion. We will no longer be keeping a portion of those offerings. They will all go to the PCUSA. That was already true for Christmas Joy and One Great Hour, but now it will be true for the third offering as well. However, there are now very large grants up to $10,000 that congregations can apply for. So hopefully, instead of keeping a couple $100s, your congregation might be able to, when you have that big mission project, to get a few $1,000s to really help. So hopefully that is a good thing that we can do in place of what we used to do. Now, A couple of just top line things you might hear about. One thing, there may be some changes coming to the ordination process. Nothing was finalized, and I'm not talking about ordination of elders and deacons. We're talking about the ordination of clergy. Those things are still not completely decided. Some things got referred to the next General Assembly, so hopefully we'll have some more news after Milwaukee in 2 years. Next, there was a long conversation about divesting from some fossil fuel companies that went on the floor of General Assembly. Ultimately, we decided not to do that. And a big part of the reason, you might hear people who are happy we're sticking with fossil fuel companies, people who are upset with sticking with fossil fuel companies. Ultimately, the choice came down to the fact that we could either divest fully from fossil fuel companies and no longer have influence on their policies or actions, or continue investing and encourage them to be more faithful stewards of our earth and of their resources. And we opted for the latter as a General Assembly. Then I want to highlight one big vote that happened, and a very emotional evening vote one night. One of the items of business was pulled off of the consent agenda, even though it passed overwhelmingly in committee. It was a little vote called "That Children May Live Free from Gun Violence." A bunch of the young adult advisory delegates, which is delegates 25 years or younger, who came not with vote, but to advise the rest of us commissioners on how we should vote, really talked a lot about their experiences at school, experiences of gun violence that took the lives of their friends and family members. It was a very, very emotional vote. That Children May Live Free from Gun Violence vote the overture that came before the General Assembly was really about taking care of children, promoting safe gun storage, encouraging parents and caregivers to take gun safety action, and ending the marketing of guns to children, just as we did with smoking about 30 years ago. The idea was we should do that with guns as well. So that vote, after a lot of emotional discussion, was taken and was actually the item on the floor of the General Assembly that received the most positive feedback. It was unanimous, as some other votes were, but 424 of the 441 commissioners voted, which was the most of any vote, and they were all in favor. It received a very large round of applause, as we are concerned in the church for the safety of our children and the lives that they may lead. If you heard about one other item of business, it might be the item of business known as POL 01, which is a change to our Presbyterian polity. This vote is not final yet, but because you might hear about it, I just want to let you know what's going on with POL 01. This is a change to our ordination process for elders and deacons. Previously, essentially, we had been there's a message about inclusion in our form of government that we encourage people on, that says that God unites persons through baptism, regardless of race, ethnicity, age, sex, disability, geography, or theological conviction. Those are the 7 sort of protected categories. To be clear, when we talk about church membership, church members are only supposed to be discriminated on in the PCUSA on one fact. That is the lordship of Jesus Christ. If you say Jesus is your Lord, you're welcome in our church as a member. If you don't, that is the only thing we're allowed to discriminate on. However, because of the various complicated natures of America in our current century and ones previous, sometimes people have been excluded because of their race, ethnicity, age, sex, disability, geography, or theological conviction. Since we have decided that those are protected statuses, this year the General Assembly also voted to include gender identity and sexual orientation as 2 of the protected categories. Again, this is not talking about who needs to be ordained and who can be ordained as a pastor. In fact, those as pastors are already categories our denomination allows for, but does not require you to ordain, as well as with ruling elders and deacons. Now, these again, we're not talking about ordination here. We're just talking about membership. We're not allowed to discriminate on someone and say, you can't be a member because you're gay or you're transgender or whatever. Or we don't allow women or we don't allow men or whatever. We can't do that. And it's made very clear here by adding the categories of gender identity and sexual orientation to our standards in the Book of Order citation is F-1.0403. So again, you might hear a lot about that. You might hear about what it's doing and what it isn't. This is about the category of being a church member. We're not allowed to discriminate, but on one thing, which is confession of the Lordship of Jesus Christ. That's what we're supposed to be about. When people are confessing that, they're eligible for membership in our church. So keep that in mind. In case you hear politically charged rhetoric around that, that's what's going on with that, with particularly Part A. Part B of that motion is really about what people who are being ordained as elders and deacons are supposed to be instructed in, and they're supposed to be instructed about that, as well as some other items that will be very exciting, I hope, and a good guidance for pastors. So pastors in particular, if you want to reach out to me, I'd be happy to explain what your elders and deacons are now supposed to be instructed in according to the Book of Order. Finally, I just want to mention we had a really, really good time at the General Assembly. Days began at 8:30 and ended at 9. And I don't mean it was a half hour. It was 12 and a half hour days of business. Our last night did go a half hour long. So they were very long days, but filled with really wonderful worship, joyful preaching, exuberance from everyone involved. The young adult advisory delegates spoke passionately, particularly about issues of sexuality and the climate, but people had amazing things to say, stories to tell from their own congregations, from immigrant communities around them, from the wonderful work that the church is doing in the world. So I want you to know, besides just the dance breaks we had, which we had 4 or 5 of those, and they were really fun, our church is a really exciting place to be. We're doing amazing ministry, and we're continuing to witness to Jesus Christ in the world in a difficult, conflicted, and often confusing time in our world. We're still doing the good work of proclaiming the good news of Jesus Christ. Again, remember, the next General Assembly will be in Milwaukee, June and July of 2026. If you're interested in attending General Assembly, make sure when those nominations come up in a couple years, you throw your hat in the ring. It's going to be a great time again. So thank you so much for giving me these too many minutes of your time. I'm sorry I talked too fast, but I don't want you to be in church for an hour and a half today, so I figured I'd better talk quickly. Again, thank you so much. God bless you, and enjoy your worship today. Bye.